Hello everybody, hope you're having a great day today. We're going to assemble this Quadrajet that we built the base plate in a previous video, we built the air horn in a previous video. Now we're going to assemble the whole thing so we've got everything all finished and ready to go. So this is an early Buick carburetor. Everything's been cleaned, prepped, ready to assemble. Base plate was built, air horn was built separately. Now we're going to put everything together to finish everything up. First, and we've got all of our parts set aside, got all of our gaskets. Again, quadrajetpower.com. We sell kits, we sell custom kits for recalibrations, for builds that have floats, got all the components, everything that you need. All here, the needle and seat, all the pieces and parts, we have it all. So whatever you need, we have one of each and 1,000 of some, so should be everything that you need. So first thing we're going to do is put the base on. So we've got the body all prepped. We're going to put the throttle body gasket in place. Now we're ready to set the base plate on. This one has 2 base plate screws. So we're going to tighten those down. We're going to make sure that these are tight. It's got the thick gasket. So now we're going to verify with our flashlight that we've got a good seal. We're going to shine this in the rear bore of the main body. Make sure that the gasket seals good to the base, and it does. So we're in good shape there. We're going to get our carburetor stand. We sell these too. Yep, we sell everything. Okay, so now we're ready to assemble everything inside the carburetor. Hope you can see everything there. We've got everything prepped. First of all, we're going to put back the idle tubes. We always pull these on every build. The restrictions at the bottom of these, we're going to make sure that they're clean and clear and that they're sized properly for the particular engine. So we're going to set those back in place. Tap them down with a brass hammer. And then we've got the punch to make sure that they are down and smooth the level they need to be. So the fuel comes up through the jet wells, comes up through the down channel, through the restriction and up through the idle tube, comes across and through the down channel restriction and goes to the idle mixture screw holes, and that's what regulates the fuel flow through the idle circuit of the Quadrajet. So got everything clean and in place there. Make sure that it's sized properly. The first things we're going to do is put the check ball in. We'll use a steel check ball. Got to drop it in the right hole. Sometimes, especially when you're on camera, it's not going to work right. So we drop it in place into the check ball hole. Now we're going to use the check ball screw. And we're going to screw that down in place. Again, everything's been cleaned, it's been blown through. We verified that everything is clear and correct. Now we're going to install new jets. We almost always install new jets. We size them correctly for today's fuels. And we have a variety of jets in sizes 67 to 78. Jet size is determined by many factors within the Quadrajet. So if you ask what size is the right size jet, because I've got a 400 horsepower engine, the question from us is going to be, what carburetor do you have? Because the main air bleeds, other factors are going to determine what the right jet size is. And for an example, a mid 70s 350 Chevy engine in a Caprice making 170 horsepower might have a 77 jet in it. 1970 Stage 1 Quadrajet from the factory might have a 67. Same thing on the factory 350 horse Chevrolet Quadrajet, have 66 or 67 jets in it. So the jet size itself is only going to be determined based on the rest of the calibrations of the carburetor. We're going to install the secondary air baffle so we don't forget that. And slide in place. That's one of those things that quite often you might finish the carburetor and find that left on your bench and have to disassemble it. So I'm getting the needle and seat assembly out of the package here. We of course sell those. Our kits come complete with a complete high flow needle and seat assembly. We use a windowed needle and seat for the best flow of fuel into the carburetor. So we're going to put that in place with the gasket. You want to make sure you've pulled the old gasket off before you install this when you're disassembling. They'll stick a lot of times, and you need to make sure that you get it off so that you've got a good seal on the needle and seat. I'm going to make sure that this threads in nice and easy and smooth until it gets to the bottom. And we'll get it good and snug. Now we're going to place a needle in place in there, and now we're going to set the float. So the float pin is going to come in from the passenger side of the car through the holes in the float. Going to set that in place. While pushing down on the front side, we're going to hold the pin down and push down on the front side of the float, and we're going to measure the float height from the back of the float. This one is too high, so we're going to take it off, and at these components here, we're going to bend slightly the float and then reassemble and then check the height. We're going to set this one to 9/32 of an inch, so we're going to verify that it operates smooth. And while holding the pin down, holding it against the needle and seat, we're going to measure here, and it's set correctly at 9/32 of an inch. So now we're going to pull the float back out. One of the things, this is a question that we see a lot. Do you use the clip for the needle and seat to connect to the float, or do you leave it off? Well, you can leave it off now. The fuel today's don't gum up like the old ones did. If you leave this off, the needle will drop into the seat and keep the fuel from flowing out, making starts easier typically. If you're going to use the clip, you want to make sure you do not slide it through the holes of the float, but you slide it from the front of the float into place. So now we're going to put that back in. And our clip fell off, so bear with me while we reinstall the clip. So the clip is slid over the front of the float. Now we're back in place. Going to make sure everything is good and smooth again, just like it should be. Next thing we're going to do is on the power piston. We're going to install a new power piston retainer. These always shrink, so we're going to cut this old one off. And we're going to throw that one away. So we have our new power piston retainer. Again, all of our kits come with this, so it's not We do sell them separately as well, just in case that's the only thing that you need. But all of our kits come complete with a new split retainer. So we're going to slide the retainer across, make sure that it's in place. You also want to make sure that your primary rod retainer spring is in place and in good shape. Now we're going to install the new primary rods. Again, typically we do install new, not always, depends on the application. Most of the time we're going to install new jets and primary rods to make sure that we're doing good with today's fuels. So we've got that ready. Next we need the power piston spring. This carburetor is stock. We're going to use our blue medium spring and put a little bit of silicone, make sure everything works good. We've cleaned the power piston itself with some triple-aught steel wool, make sure that it's going to slide good and smooth through the bore when we put it in place. You want to make sure that the tips, well, a couple of things. We want to make sure that we're square across the top of the power piston. Sometimes these are bent up or down, or they're not level. You want to make sure that they're absolutely level before we go back in. This one is, so we're in good shape. Other thing is, when we're putting it in, you want to make sure that the tips of the primary rods are going into the jets. When we pulled this one apart, I don't know if you can see this, the tip of this rod was bent over 90 degrees. It did not go inside the jet, but they went ahead and forced it down anyway. So that would have created a pretty poor mixture when that carburetor is running, which we never know. That may be why that the carburetor was discarded and we were able to buy it. So now we're going to put get the retainer in place and push it down with the flat plate screwdriver. It fits nice and tight in the bore, so it'll hold the power piston in place while you're assembling the rest of the carburetor. So everything's good there. All of our kits come with a complete needle and seat. I'm sorry, holy cow. A complete accelerator pump assembly. Some store-bought kits have a cup with them. You're supposed to reuse your old components. We don't think so. So every build that we do and every kit that we sell has a complete accelerator pump assembly with a return spring. We're just going to slide this in slightly to make sure that it operates smooth, and it does. So we're in good shape. So we're going to put the spring there. Oh, one thing I almost forgot, the float cover. It's a critical piece, so make sure you've got it in place. You want to make sure the float pin sticks up above the float cover. To make sure that it holds down when you put the air horn on. So now we're going to put the new gasket in place. The gasket's got a place that you can push down, so we can slide that underneath the power piston and the primary rods. Slide it into place, push the holes over the pin. So now with the accelerator pump in place, all the components in place, we're going to put the air horn on. Got to make sure that the pullover enrichment tubes and the vent tubes are going to go into the correct holes. The pullover enrichment tubes are going to go into the pullover wells, the main body. We've got everything slid on just as it should. Now we're going to put the screws. Let's start with the two inner screws. Okay, so now we're going to tighten down We'll start with the inner screws. Going to run everything down to where it's in place but not tight. Going to make sure we got a good air sound from the accelerator pump and that it's working smooth before we go any further. So all the screws are just run down. We got a real good air sound there, so that indicates that we've got a good seal between the air horn and the main body. The passages are clear as they should be. So we're going to go ahead and tighten that up, and everything's in place. Now we're going to finish assembling everything on the outside. Make sure we got good movement on everything. I'm going to check all these components as we put it together. You can see that this hanger is not level, so we're going to level up the hanger and make sure that we've got a good level sure that they're equal for the secondary rods. We have a good variety of used secondary rods available, and we also sell some of the new ones that are available. Secondary rods are going to hook over the hanger, then they're going to slide in place. And then we're going to use a new screw to attach the hanger. Make sure everything's working smooth. You may have to tighten the tension just a little bit on that before we finish up. Now we're going to do the accelerator pump rod and the arm. So we're going to slide it through the slot. It's got a little notch on it. It's got a notch in the throttle arm slot, so we're going to slide that in place. Bring it up here. Going to use the inner hole. We're going to make sure that that lines up with our punch pin, and then we're going to slide the roll pin back to hold that in place. Everything's good there. So now on the outside of the carburetor, the last thing that we've got here, well, it's not the last. We're going to install the choke components. This Buick had a primary and a secondary. We're going to put the fast idle cam on, make sure it's above the arm. And set it here while we get the choke rod. We're going to turn the carburetor on the side. We're going to slide the choke rod with the choke actuator down in the hole. Make sure that we can see it on the side of the carburetor. We're going to slide our punch through it so we can hold it, and we're going to put the upper pin through the slot on the choke arm. Now, get rid of our stand for a minute while we put this in place. Once the actuator is lined up in the center of the hole, we're going to open the throttle arm just a little bit so that everything will slide into place correctly. Now the choke should slide, and I guess I'll show you that. The choke itself has the cutout, so we need to slide that through the actuator for the choke system to work correctly. And I just knocked it out of place. So Slide that back up. Now we're going to slide the choke on. Make sure it's in position. It should easily slide over in. Everything works right. We're going to put the screw in the choke bracket. Tighten that down, let the primary blades close, make sure everything's operating properly. Choke as well, everything is, so we're good. So now we're going to put the primary pull-off on with the rod. Slide the rod into the secondary shaft first. Then we're going to slip it over the pull-off. Going to go around the choke components and then slide this onto the bracket. And we sell all the pull-offs and everything else that you need. So now we're going to put a new vacuum hose from the carburetor to the pull-off. We're going to check the length, cut that to the right length, and then put that in place. I'm going to make sure it's snug. It almost always is, but we want to verify that it is before we go. So this one has a secondary auxiliary pull-off. These can be eliminated in most cases if it's because it's a redundant function to the primary side. But for a stock build, we typically keep these in place. But on a modified, if we're doing a performance build, we'll typically remove these and block the vacuum port to make sure. But this one's in place. Again, we're going to make sure, open the throttle blades, make sure that the choke functions fully without any issues. Now we're going to install the vacuum hose for the auxiliary. And now that's in place. So we're all good there. One of the last things we're going to do before we check everything is the float. I'm sorry. Golly. You guys bear with me today. It's Friday, all right? So we got the inlet housing for the filter. This is an early style. So this one's going to have, this one's going to seal to the face of the carburetor. This one also has a long filter. Filter, float, they sound alike, right? So we'll always install a new filter. We also install a new spring, a new gasket. When we're doing, the spring goes in first. The whole of the filter is going to go towards the front of the fuel inlet, so fuel can go in and through the filter. And now we're going to put that in place. We're going to tighten that down. So you have 1-inch nut. We're going to tighten this down till it's snug, and then later we'll test that for a good seal. So there's the assembly of the carburetor after we already did all of the build of the base and the air horn. We're going to check the fast idle system now to make sure that everything's in place. Forgot that I need to put a clip on the choke rod. So we sell those hairpin clips too. Kits come with them. So everything's in place. We're gonna open the throttle blades slightly, raise the choke to make sure the fast idle cam's engaged, and then we're gonna check and make sure that the throttle is not touching this throttle, the idle speed adjustment screw. There is a fast idle adjustment screw that's on the bottom of the fast idle components over here. That's how you adjust your fast idle speed. I'm just going to verify that everything's engaged there. It's in place. The fast idle cam's staying up. When we open the throttle, kick it down, it should settle. The fast idle cam should fall, and the throttle should come back resting on the idle mixture, the idle speed screw. Folks, that's pretty much the assembly of the Quadrajet after we've done all the components itself. Again, all the parts, kits, everything that you need, quadrajetpower.com. We'd appreciate your business. If you have any questions, looking for certain parts, new, used, whatever, just give us a holler. info@quadrajetpower.com is the email. Or go to our website, quadrajetpower.com. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you learned something today. We appreciate you. Thank you.